Okay, so we made this commitment. The month of November is the month of raising consciousness with Cognomovement. We have Cogno Quantum coming up, and we have our big guns, which is Cogno Conscious, Cogno Quantum and Cogno Conscious, which is a 3-day event. So we really wanted to make sure that everybody who's with us kind of knows what that's about and knows the premise. So we've made this commitment in general to raise the consciousness of the planet with each person who comes in contact with our work. So that's our purpose for tonight, right, Bill? And for next month?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I will kick us off. Let me get my screen up and running. Working on it. Okay, I'm almost there.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. Technical stuff is not my thing. All right. So welcome to the Cognomovement Consciousness Masterclass, where we're going to be talking about everything consciousness and how it changes when we change what happens in the body. Consciousness shifts. We're going to talk about how the Cognomovement system and its classes affect consciousness. That's kind of the framework we're going to put this in. We're going to present to you our unique slant on consciousness, as everybody has a different slant. But tonight we're going to put it in the package of how we use the classes to raise consciousness. This is what we're going to share tonight. How consciousness creates your reality. The mechanics of moving to the third, from the third to the fifth dimension. And for those of you who don't know what the dimensions are and why people are using those terms, we're going to share a little bit about that too. And we're going to do that through a document that Bill created, which is called the Map of Awareness. We're going to talk about how just the basics of Cognomovement can change your consciousness in our basic training class, but we're really putting it in the context of what can happen when you have even the most basic of the tools. We're actually going to share for the first time what happened in Bill's very first Cognomovement session and how the consciousness shift that happened there kind of launched the whole thing. We're going to talk about how shifting consciousness changes you, meaning everything about you. The biggest thing that happens for most of us who are practitioners, we find that people will say, I feel like a different person. Immediately during the session, I just feel different. And in our follow-up, they'll say, I'm everything's different. I'm just a different person. But we're actually going to show you how it changes your physical body through some BioWell results. We're going to talk about what the Cogno Quantum class is and how the quantum field is affected by what happens inside our bodies. We're going to share what Cogno Conscious is and some of the most fun stories ever that have happened. In the first Cogno Conscious session, which I did, I was experimenting, and what happened in the first Cogno Conscious seminar. And at the very end, we're going to talk about the karma question. So I know our practitioners are probably like, what? What is she talking about? So that's something interesting and new that we'll share with you guys. So let's get this party started. What is consciousness? So I'll read to you what I found in Wikipedia. It says consciousness, at its simplest, is sentience or awareness of internal or external existence. So also, what the heck does that make? What the heck? Leah is messaging me while I'm on a conference. Team leader Leah, would you please message me in the chat? Okay. So what sense does that make? What does that even mean, that sentience or awareness of internal or external existence? Despite centuries of analysis, definitions and explanations, also debates by philosophers and scientists, consciousness remains puzzling and controversial, being at once the most familiar and the most mysterious aspects of our lives. Some would say that it's the description simply of being awake instead of asleep. And we have found, we meaning all of us at Cognomovement, that through your consciousness and awareness, you literally can change everything. So I'm going to toss it over to Bill because he had someone share something with him about consciousness that changed everything for him. So go ahead, Bill.
Oh, well, thanks, Liz. So this one had always kind of perplexed me. You know, I had even post-awakening, you know, everybody's talking about consciousness and raising your consciousness, and I'm listening to it, but it's kind of like I'm not really what are you talking about? You know, I'm not sure what you actually mean by that. And then one day there was this one great teacher of mine that was just there and just casually says, "Oh, well, you know, consciousness is simply the understanding that you've come to thus far in your life. That is your level of consciousness." And I was like, "Oh, there it is. Okay, now I get it." And once I understood it from that point of view, I was like, "Oh, well, everything else made perfect sense." And the changes that occur at different levels of understanding, a new understanding that you came to, will produce a new quality of life. It's new. It's a new quality of life, and that could be any quality of life based upon the understanding. So that's that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old idea of a paradigm shift. Remember when the word paradigm shift was on everybody's lips and nobody could pronounce it? Paradigm shift. Well, what it really meant was a shift in perspective. And in some ways, you could say that consciousness is that when your consciousness shifts, when your perspective shifts so dramatically that you see the world in a new way, your consciousness has also shifted. So consciousness is also what we would say is the real creative energy, and that it actually exists in the mind, true, in the body, really, really true, and in the higher self. And that all three are what makes up the consciousness, the ability you have to use your consciousness to change everything. We know that your life reflects the way that you feel. So this is more about feeling. And in the old ideas or paradigms about manifestation, if you're in the, self-help or spiritual world, or you'll hear this thing about manifestation. And it used to be that you would think your way into new things. But we discovered that thinking is only one small aspect, and it's really the way you feel that makes a difference in how things actually turn out. So Bill, take this next one, about 95%.
Okay, so you're gonna have to follow me along the primrose path on this, but this has been verified by a neurologist now. Terrific work, a Brazilian neurologist, works out of USC. But this is basically what we know, right, is we know that 95% of our awareness is subconscious and 5% is conscious. Now, we also know that the body, our physical body, expresses the subconscious. When you have a feeling in your body, you're not saying, I have this feeling like, I'm going to have a feeling in my body. No, your body has a feeling, and then you're like, hey, my body has a feeling, and that stimulates a certain thought, right? So our subconscious is expressed through our physical body. But here's the kicker. The kicker is that we make decisions based upon the way that we feel. Everybody thinks that it's, I make decisions because I'm logical and I think up here. Guess what? You have a feeling and then you justify it. I got a feeling and then I justify it, right? It's right for me to love that person. It's right for me to kill them. They have it coming, whatever it might be. You have a feeling and then you logically justify it. This is super important because of what we'll talk about a little bit later.
Another way that we say that, what Bill's talking about, is that your body actually informs your mind what to think, right? So if your mind sees something and your body doesn't feel anything about it. So we use this analogy. You see somebody walk by and they're dressed funny, and you notice it with your logical mind, with your eyes, but you don't feel anything about it. You'll never think about that incident again. You'll never feel it. It just won't matter to you. However, if you see somebody walk by and they're dressed funny, and the fabric on their clothes remind you of your great Aunt Hilda, and you just really loved her, but she's gone now, right? You know where I'm going with this. You feel something. And for the rest of that day, you might think about your Aunt Hilda. In fact, you might even think it's a message from the universe that Aunt Hilda's thinking about you because this person just walked by and she's wearing the dress, and right? So what we feel about informs our mind of what actually to think. So when Bill says that 95% of our decisions are based on what we feel, it couldn't be more true, because the body informs the mind about how to feel, good or bad. So here's our question, and this is something that we posed in the book, Suffering is Optional, on the website. What if shifting of consciousness is simply a technical issue? So I'll explain a little more later, but what we're kind of asking is, what if it isn't this psycho-spiritual thing that you need to go sit in, silence or in meditation or on the top of Tibet to change? What if it's something physical and technical, just a simple tool that we need to change our consciousness? So that's the big question that we started asking. So this is the premise of Cognomovement and consciousness. We've discovered a way to shift consciousness quickly and easily by deleting patterns, or what we call cognitive loops, and a lot of times we'll shorten it down to loops, in the mind and body with our tool, which is Cognomovement. Allowing the energy used by those patterns and programs and loops to be returned to the body and to be used to expand our perspectives, the mind, heal the body, and create a massive jump in consciousness. So really what we're talking about here is the idea that by deleting those patterns we just talked about, the body informing the mind of what to think, and a lot of times those get going. They go round and round and round. The more I think about it, the more I feel about it. The more I feel about it, the bigger my mind makes it, the more important it is. And that this is the foundation for the idea that those programs take a lot of energy. Bill's going to show you this in the map of awareness even more. those programs become the biggest things in our life. What we think about, what we feel about, and what we act about are often the biggest problems in our life. They're the thing that takes up all the energy, all the time, all of our awareness to solve the problem, to make it different, to fight people about our problem. I mean, we're fighting people about our problems all the time. And all of our available energy and attention is caught up in those loops or thought body patterns. So we realized that when we can delete or remap or change one of those, what we'll call a negative pattern or loop, you get all the energy back. And now your consciousness is changed. You have the ability to see differently, to think differently. You have the freedom that that energy gives you to change anything in your life. So that is our basic premise. Do you want to add to that, Bill?
The thing that I can add to it is it'll become real for you when it's real in your experience. A lot of it, this may sound kind of like, well, I don't know about that, but I'm going to show you a little bit later scientific proof that what happens when you actually process, when you go from fear to love or forgiveness from resentment to forgiveness. These sorts of things, we can actually measure what's happening with your energy field. So we have some proof on that we're going to actually show you. And this equates like directly to your physical health and also the quality of your life. So there's nothing that it does not impact. I just happen to have some physical proof for you. So go ahead, Liz.
So before we move on to the dimensions, and Bill will kind of sort this out for you there, you'll kind of get a good idea of how what's happening in your body creates the life that you're experiencing. Kind of start to think about your own patterns. So when we don't have enough energy, mental, physical, or even spiritual, we don't get things done. We don't change the things in our life that we want to change. We don't create new things. We have all kinds of reasons and excuses. But the core of it is we just don't have the energy that it takes to do that thing. We then will do the same things every day. Like I said, we're fighting with the same people, either outwardly or in our minds. We're taking the same pathway to work. We're getting up at the same time or lack of the same time. We're eating the same foods. Think about the things you want to change in your own life and how they really are a pattern or a rut. And just kind of notice as we talk about this, that how your life might be different if you were able to relieve that one problem. And remember that I said, the thing that you think about, act on, worry about, that's usually your number one biggest problem. And think about how many times a day you experience that problem or think about it. So just kind of note, if you're thinking about it now, write it down and just kind of carry it with you through what we're going to talk about and see how it's actually creating the life you're experiencing right now. So we're going to move on, and Bill's going to share with us the map of awareness. Go ahead, Bill.
Liz, just so I don't go off, off track here as far as timing goes, how many minutes do I have on this slide?
You probably have about 10 minutes on this one. And remember that we break it down
Got it.
all the way in the next three. So,
okay, so I put together this map of awareness based upon some understandings that I had garnered through experience and different masters that I had encountered and different information that I was able to assemble down into these different dimensions. Different dimensions have different characteristics. So in the and And you know you're going to be able to self-assess here. Where am I at most of the time? So when you're in these different dimensions, the third dimension, it's governed and has these the certain laws apply in different dimensions. For example, in the third dimension, time is linear. Like there's 60 minutes in an hour, and that's it. All right. There's no flexibility off of that. In the fourth dimension, time becomes malleable. You can actually, let's say a trip at 60 miles an hour in 1 hour should get you there in 1 hour. Well, in the fourth dimension, if you're there, it may only take you 30 minutes. You're still going 60 miles an hour, but you arrive 30 minutes early. So it becomes malleable. In the fifth dimension, things happen instantly. If I think about it, I'm there, literally there. And I've had the great fortune of knowing people in all three dimensions and having experience in the three different dimensions. So these things are very, very real. They're not just hypothetical. They actually have real results, real ramifications in your life today. So the third dimension, the bottom dimension here, is where you're going to find about 99.6% of humanity. It is governed by conditional love. So when you're in the third dimension, you're going to experience conditional love. What does that look like? Well, it looks like laws, rules, regulations. There's yours and mine. There is very much a feeling of being demanding or condemning in different things. People want. You are in either a state of wanting something, not getting what you want, or you're indifferent to it. When you're here in this dimension, in the third dimension, you'll experience everything in judgment, and you'll look outside of yourself for love, and you'll also look outside of yourself for a validation of some kind. When you're here in this dimension, most people have a range of emotions that they're in. Now, these emotions start at the very low side is shame and humiliation, guilt, grief, blame, resentment, fear, anxiety, the kind of desire that you might have would be craving type desires, or at the high end of the scale, you might feel a sense of inflationary pride. I'm great because I'm an American, I'm great because I'm this or whatever. But it's very much duality. Everything happens in this dimension through a force of will, or you're seeing yourself victimized. There's very little room, if I say very little because I don't like to make absolutes, but it is the realm in this dimension where everything is just happening physically, mechanically, and through a force of will. Your ability to change things is literally non-existent at this level, other than making it happen. In the fourth dimension, things start to shift, and this is a gradient, by the way. In this dimension, entering into the fourth dimension, this is the realm ultimately of unconditional love, or a good feeling unattached to an outcome. I got a good feeling and just for no reason, right? Or I feel good about you. I'm looking at you and I don't have any judgment about you, and I'm feeling good about it, for no reason. So in this dimension, you find an interesting shift. And the interesting shift is all of a sudden, as you enter into it, you now see choices. In the third dimension, you are in reaction. Whatever was going on in your with you in the third dimension, it was either because you had a habit or because you were simply reacting to, oh, this happened. Well, I guess this is my response. So in the fourth dimension here, you start to see choices. You start to allow others to be, do, say as they wish. You feel a sense of compassion for others. Time becomes malleable and everything speeds up. If I think about it, I think about, what, I'm going to get one of them new, no, I'm going to get myself a new Tesla, and before in the third dimension, you might think about it for a long time. It's like 3 years, and the fourth dimension, all of a sudden, you think about it and then it's like, oh my gosh, I could do this. And, something, all the different pieces of the puzzle, go from 3 years down to, 2 days or whatever. So I have examples. I have wonderful stories about this happening to one of my teachers within moments, just of thinking something. It literally gets a phone call. I got to tell this one story because one of my teachers, she had this retreat room and she was like, you know what? I don't like these chairs. You know what, these chairs in here, I want new chairs that are, I guess, I don't know, mauve. Is mauve a reddish? I don't know. I'm color, on a color blind thing. But anyway, she wanted chairs that matched the room, and she wanted them to be with arms. And she was like, and literally, this is how fast things happen. Literally thought about it. Just like, yeah, I think, you know what? I'm done with these. I need some, I'm going to get new ones. I'm going to get new chairs, but, and this is like 15 chairs, right? 15 minutes. 1555. 15 minutes. Bring, bring, bring. Hello. Hey, listen, we got about, I don't know, it looks about 20 chairs down here, and we don't really need them anymore, but they're mauve and they got arms on them and they got cushions, and would you like those? Sure. I mean, it was like that. Anyway, I have so many stories about this, but it is directly proportional to your level of consciousness here. This is very, very real. So as we let go in the fourth dimension, we're letting go of judgments. Well, we don't like that. But when we let go of judgments, there's what I call a sweeter piece of chocolate. There's a jujube or a sweeter piece of chocolate for us. And that is time shrinks, right? And also our ability to manifest happens. The characteristics of this dimension are that we stop with the wanting and thwarted wanting and that sort of thing. And we start to become willing and optimistic and forgiving. And we start to have empathy for others and compassion. And unconditional love, in the end, is seen as in our interest. It's my interest to love you. That's what's good for me. I know now that maybe hating you is not so good for me. And I have some scientific evidence as to why that is. I'm going to show you a little bit later in this slideshow. And then anyway, fifth dimension, I'm running a long time. I'm trying to keep track of it. In the fifth dimension, everything becomes one. You have a sense of peace and joy, and you are no longer separate. You think it appears. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because this typically happens with most people that are on this path accidentally for a little period of time as they jump into it and then realize they're not ready. And then they pull back. So this is not a straight path. You're going to pull up, you're going to pull back, and it's like walking up, 2 steps up, 1 stair down, walk up 2 steps, that type of thing.
Okay, I'll trade you slides, Bill, here. We're going to move on because we're going to break this down just a little bit more.
Okay.
So I'm trying to change the slide and it's not going anywhere.
You have to go back to the bottom.
Yeah, usually I can do it with my cursor. Okay.
There you go.
So we're here in the, hold on just a second, guys. I'm sorry.
We got it up on the screen. You're good.
Good.
Third
Okay,
dimension.
great. So we're going to drop back down into the third dimension just for a second and talk a little bit more about how your life actually looks, because we're talking a lot about consciousness. But what does that look like in your life? So how does it relate to body feeling this way and life acting that way? Go ahead, Bill.
Oh boy. Well, it's all about that. It's what are we physically experiencing, right? So everything in our lives, it's like, I like to look at it kind of like a layered cake. You know, if you look and imagine there was a different layer, right? A layered cake. Well, whatever my understanding that I came to thus far in my life, level of consciousness, the world looks that way to me. So if I'm angry, right, I see things to be angry about. If I'm afraid, then I see things to be afraid of. So anything that is outside the scope of that fear, and if people tell me I shouldn't be afraid, I just think they're nuts. I think, hey, you know what? You're the person who's going to get it, you know, because I'm just smart enough to figure this out. You know, you're a little stupid there. So what happens though is you get this loop that goes round and round. I see it and then I create it, or that's merely my what I am seeing and what I am creating. This loop is extremely expensive. It is life. If life feels like a slog to you, if life feels like you're going through the mud, you know, it's like, you know what, I'll get it done, you know, and I'll just put this on my back and I'm going to trudge through this, and you know, you'll, or if you feel like, you know what, it just got so much, I can hardly get out of bed. In the lower levels here, you literally can't even get up to vacuum the floor. You know, you barely could feed yourself. You know, you can't do the dishes. All of this is naturally occurs and naturally goes away as we lift up our level of consciousness or process this stuff out of our bodies. In the end, all of this, once you go through one of these programs, the suffering end becomes optional. You know that you do not have to live it anymore. I had one, anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, tell your story, Bill. I'm just going to tell a story on myself when you're done. So go ahead.
Oh, I before I got on this phone, you know, on this call today, I actually had this very extensive session, and that was really it. We busted a loop that was lifelong, and the person won't have to have it anymore, and they were confused, and that's how it always feels at the end of one of these sessions where we unlock it. It's like that I've been me for so long and had this feeling of me and struggle and strife or depression or whatever it is for so long that the fact it's gone, it just feels like unnatural for a moment, right? Until they come into full alignment with it. Anyway, go ahead, Liz.
I mean, boy, is that true. Remember that I said that so many people will say, I just feel like a different person when I leave the session or leave the class. And it's so true. They actually are different. The program no longer is running in their system, and yet they keep looking for it. I know when we're in session, especially me in private session, I know that when a person's eyes are in a specific position and if they're moving back and forth and I see this little furrow between their eyebrows and this confusion, and I'll say, are you looking for it? And they are, because you're so used to that pattern running in your system that your body feels it and your mind thinks it. When it's gone, you're not sure how to be without it for just a few minutes. Then you learn real quick how to be without it. But the story I wanted to tell myself has to do with this quote from Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard was a prolific writer and one of the New Thought leaders way back in the day, in the early 20th century. So he said that the minute I want it, so want it, you see thwarted wanting here under ego. The minute I want it, I confess to the universe that I'm not it. So what does that mean, and why I included it? Because it really struck me. I used to be the queen of frustration. And, you know, if you ask Leah, some days I still am. But I would have an idea and immediately go to frustration. Why? Because I didn't think of it 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago. That was my pattern in that third dimensional place. I had the ideas, but I would immediately go into frustration about it rather than like, woohoo, new idea, let's move forward. That was my pattern. So this quote, the minute I want it, I confess to the universe that I'm not it, struck me particularly, but it's also the truth. The wanting of it and that feeling in the body, you know, that's what it means, thwarted wanting, that feeling in the body of I want it. And because I want it, I know I don't have it already. We start to project into the universe the not having it, which is exactly what we don't want. So we've actually learned how to counteract that. And that's why we now say we know that suffering is optional. Why optional? Because sometimes we kind of like to wander around in our own suffering. Sometimes we like our little bit of bitch fests and complaining and gossiping maybe. But when we're finished with that, and for those of us who know now, those times get less and less and less because we realize that we can feel better anytime we want with this tool of Cognomovement. So that's it for me. I'll move on to the next slide. 4D. Oh, actually, this slide is what happens when a computer gets overloaded. We get stuck. And you see how it's loading? You see how it's constantly spinning? That's what it feels like. So here's the analogy we use. Imagine that when you're born, you have this brand new clean computer. It comes with an operating system though. So it's preloaded. That's our DNA, right? We come with stuff that our parents had and our ancestors had, you know, things that we like, things that we don't like, how we look, sometimes how we act. So we have that, but basically the system runs pretty clean. And almost immediately, even in the womb, we start to gather programs. We hear things, some of those things are good, some of them are not, and we respond to the feeling in our mother's womb, and we start to learn. The body, mind starts to learn. As soon as we're born, we start to learn what hurts us and what we like. This nervous system starts to protect us from the things that hurt us, and it pays no attention to the things we actually like. So the programs that we start to load, like we do with a brand new computer, we start to load on new programs, things that are useful, things that sometimes aren't, that come with them, like computer viruses. Sometimes we try to add programs onto our computer that are just too big for the system. And eventually what happens, and for some of us it's sooner in our life, and for some of us it's later, is we start to get this loading symbol where everything stops. Nothing happens. Nothing moves. We're stuck. And we get that frustrated feeling, and we get that feeling of thwarted wanting in everything in our lives because nothing's moving forward. What we've discovered is that when we can start to remove those programs, our consciousness level starts to become greater. We start to move up into this fourth dimension, and way more things are possible. So let's look a little closer at the fourth dimension.
So in this fourth dimension, you will naturally have some things that start to happen here. The thing that is most pronounced is that you will experience in this when you're here, it is like you're going to experience more actual energy. When you're in the third dimension, you're feeling a much less, heavier energy, and as I mentioned earlier, not having the energy or clarity to get stuff done. When I say clarity, that your energy moves up your spine and into your brain. And when that's clogged up, your thoughts are clogged up as well. And it gets clogged up through our negative kind of thoughts and feelings. So one of the aspects that happens here is that you have an increase in intuition. And that intuition comes from many different ways. Some people see, some people hear, some people know or feel. You also have something that naturally occurs, and what can only be called a miracle starts to become commonplace. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, and if you caught me, whatever, decade or two ago, I would have gone, you are high. You are so high. I would like to know what that is because I'd like to get some. It sounds so unbelievable that it won't be true until you actually do this and get in and it actually happens to you. But it's extremely common. So it becomes so common that it's a weekly occurrence, for you, or maybe just daily. You will experience timelines shifting. So when things that would have a certain timeline to them, for example, maybe I got a problem with, let's say I got a problem with my mom, right? And that's been ongoing, and that's just how it is. And there's no anything to help that shift. They're getting older and it won't shift. Now, when it's been a problem all of your life, you wouldn't expect your mom to just shift and like all of a sudden she's calling you and saying, I've been thinking, I kind of regret the way I treated you, and I do know that I did this and that. And when she's been denying it all your life, it's like, no, I never did nothing. I don't know what you're talking about, and you're like, what? So anyway, I mean, literally, this happens all the time where the person shifts and then the mother calls apologizing. So anyway, that is a typical fourth dimensional situation there. Liz?
Yeah, I mean, the last piece of this too, and the most exciting piece to me is that in this space, your energy is yours to use, to create. So now, because you're free of a lot of these patterns, we'll show you kind of how that happens, the process. But when you're free of a lot of these patterns that were using up a massive amount of your energy just to run them, the nervous system is protecting you. It wants you to pay attention to these things that you need to be protected from, even though that's not true. And we don't need to be protected from them anymore. It's just an old leftover thing that our limbic system does that puts us into fight or flight for things that it thinks we need to be protected from. When our energy is no longer bound up with that, it's free for us to use to create new things. And that's one of the big reasons that miracles can be created quickly. And we have a joke within our practitioners, within Cognomovement practitioners, and it's kind of a joke, but it's actually real. And we'll say, where's our miracle? You know, it's noon and our miracle hasn't happened yet. Because we get the great privilege of literally seeing miracles happen every time there's a session almost. And what we see is with the timeline shift, like Bill was talking about, what we're really saying is what was possible, impossible before the session, sometimes even just 10 minutes before, becomes fully possible after. So it feels like you've just walked into an absolutely brand new timeline. So the last one here is the fifth dimension. And it does equal some things in our lives when we get to experience that. Go ahead, Bill.
So in this space here that you no longer want, you simply create. You simply see it as is, and it is. Relationships become very easy because you see the oneness with them and you have this incredible love and compassion for them. You're here in this dimension and there is no real reaction to others, being, doing, and saying whatever, because of this oneness. In this dimension, you have to be extremely clear. When you enter this dimension and you have still some things to work out, what happens is you create chaos. And I've told some of these chaotic stories that I created in the past, so I won't belabor everybody on the call with those. But if you're having a negative reaction to something, and you're in this dimension, well, boom, it creates it like that. So there's a mastery that you have to go through, and that's why there is a fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is the training wheels that you have on your bike. You're taking off getting those training wheels so that you can ride without the training wheels. You may find yourself slipping back to the third and getting jealous or angry or, wanting something, whatever. And so you get to clear it up. Well, you still have time on your side, because in the fourth dimension, you still have time. And time, although it's sped up, it still gives you a little space. In the fifth dimension, time is now one. So you have no time in between your thought and creation. So I would call it an elegantly designed system of the universe that they've created for us to escalate ourselves up the ladder and give us a little latitude as we're escalating in between the third and the fifth dimension features. Now, one of the things about these three dimensions is that if I assume many people here know about the different chakras, and so these are energy centers. So there's the first three energy centers are about, the base is money and survival. The second is about sex, and the third is around power. So if you're in the third dimension, money, sex, power. There's something, either I feel overpowered, I'm trying to overpower another, the sex thing or the money thing. So those are the typical focus of the third dimension. In the fourth dimension, we're focused up here in the spiritual area, in the seventh chakra and the sixth. And you start to get those mystical things happening. And in the fifth, interestingly enough, you're in the heart. You have expanded the heart, and you're living from that as a real feeling of actual love right there. So as I know, what everybody's thinking right now is, where am I? Where am I? Oh, well, where are you? Are you to spend most of your time up here? Are you in your heart most of the time? Do I feel fear or anger or resentment most of the time? So when are a lot of miracles going on around me all the time? Anyway, you can really tell where you're at. But the cool thing here is where you're at is where you're at the moment. You can change it. You can climb up. And this is not like a hard climb. It's something that's doable. There's a tool that you can do it with. Anyway, go ahead, Liz.
Well, so that's exactly what this next slide is about, is what's the tool. So the basic tool, the place to start, the way that you can begin to delete your own patterns, make real change instantly, is through the basic training program that we offer through Cognomovement. It can move you to these higher levels of consciousness. You don't have to have anything fancy. In fact, I'm going to have Bill share one of his stories here in just a minute about the very first ever Cognomovement session. So here's the thing to think about. What if this doesn't have to be so hard? What if it's not a psychological or even a spiritual issue that keeps you from having the life that you want, but a technical one? So we posed that question before. What if it's simply a nuts and bolts mechanical malfunction? So that loop, that pattern in the brain and the body, the one that the body's trying to use to keep us safe, if it's just a mechanical malfunction that holds our patterns in place and that creates suffering. So the basic training that we offer shows you how to begin to delete patterns between the brain and the body that are keeping you stuck. So I'm going to move on to the next one. I want to have Bill share. Oh, wait, just before that, we'll share this one. So there's a reason that with the basic training, you can create these big changes. And it's basically because you're just a projector that projects into the universe what you're feeling. So our cells, every one of our cells, our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings are just a projector. They just project into our own fields, our own energetic field, the bigger universal field, how we are feeling in the moment. And the universe, it just mirrors it right back. That's why that map of awareness shows you where you are based on how you feel. However you feel is what your life is going to be. You change the way you feel and you change the way your life is going. So it's just a grander part of our patterns. So that's why we know for sure that with even the most basic Cognomovement technique, you can create these changes and you can actually start to lift your awareness. So in this next slide, this is Bill's very first ever Cognomovement session, Jones and his money issues.
So what happened with, we're calling him Jones for, we changed the name to protect the innocent here. But Jones, I had this idea about Cognomovement. I'd helped a lot, thousands of people I had been helping over the course of a decade or so. And then over the time, I started to get an idea. I was thinking that this would work. And so anyway, I got a ball, and I designed Cognomovement, and I'd known Jones since we were in our teens. And I went to him and I said, hey, I got something new. I really want to try it out. And would you be willing to be the victim here? And I didn't want him to shut me down. So I said, I don't want to know what it is. I knew he was suffering, but I said, I don't want to know what it is, so it'll allow him to do the process, without feeling vulnerable. So, okay, he's like, yeah, I got something. I said, what, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is it? And he said, oh, it's a 10. I was like, okay, good. And so I did the basic Cognomovement process, just side to side with Cognomovement, and had him do it. And it was only a few minutes. I said, just stay in it, stay in the problem. And his belly button, started, he says, my belly button's getting hot. And this guy is not, there's nothing woo 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 about this guy. He doesn't, not in his world. And he said, oh my gosh, I'm so hot. And he was literally sweating profusely. I'm watching him, and all I'm doing is throwing the ball, left, right, and having him just say the colors and on the Cognomovement ball. And then he was like, oh my gosh, it's so hot. And then he says, my belly button's so hot. Is about maybe 8 minutes or so, 9 minutes. All of a sudden, he was like, I'm gonna have a heart attack. My heart. And I was like, no, you're not. Keep going. And I said, are you still hot? No, I'm not hot, but I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack. And I said, just keep going, just keep going. Maybe another 3 minutes or so, he started choking. He was like, and he's just saying the color. And I started choking. I said, hey, does your heart still hurt? Is it hurt? He said, no, it doesn't, but I can't. He's choking. And then it went up to the top of the head and it went out, and it was gone. And I gave him a ride to the airport right after that. And we were all the way to the airport. I was like, hey, so how was that? He says, I can't feel it. I said a minute ago it was at 10. He says, I know, I'm confused. He says, it's been my whole life. I'm like, and now I can't even feel it. He says, it's just the strangest thing, And anyway, that was it. Got on a plane. See you later, Jones. And anyway, fast forward. It was probably, I don't know, maybe almost a year later, I think. And I was talking to him, and everything shifted after that. And he admitted what it was all about. And what happened was, he told me, he was in a job for a long time and facing retirement. And he was so concerned, he was literally thinking about buying a trailer and moving out to the desert and living there. You just where that's his only option. And anyway, what had ended up happening is that after the session, he said that all of a sudden he got the idea that he could buy some property that would cash flow. So he ended up buying 2 houses on 1 lot. And day one, he had something like $700 in positive cash flow. It was in another state, but he did it. And then he had another part of his own residence that on his property that he made into an apartment. And he rented that. And he had more money coming in. And then he had another little garage area that he was renting. And all of a sudden, all his money's coming in, and he was using it all to pay down the houses. And he was like, you know what? After that, everything changed. His financial situation was the worry, and he couldn't get out of the loop. But once it was cleared out of his system, he could see clearly. The energy got up into his brain and out of being stuck, and his entire situation changed. And the guy's looking at things he would never look at before. It's like, you know what? I think I'll buy myself a boat or something. So anyway, that is the Jones story. It's very it was, it's really fun, and it's fun to help somebody change their life. It's one of the things I really enjoy. I know all the other Cognomovement practitioners that have done this really enjoy giving somebody else a new life, right? I mean, if if not for that session, he would have continued the path and ended up in the desert, tumbleweeds. All right, Liz, go ahead.
So I just want to say that it was literally before any of the Cogno movement balls were made. I mean, it really was, Bill's first session and an experiment. And the part about the heart, the head, the belly is with Cogno movement, we go in through the body. We're talking about sensation. He didn't sit in therapy for months. He didn't, talk it out. I mean, he did nothing but feel the sensation and move this silly ball around. And so that's why we're sharing that even with the basic training, you can also create these same changes and much more. The basic training is basically what our first practitioners were given. That's how much is in this basic training class. So if Bill just had the most basic Cogno movement steps in this session, and he created that much for his client, imagine what you can create for yourself with all the material that's in the basic training.
Well, there's a lot. Just to help to identify that, there is a lot. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of information and the actual exercises, plus you get the balls with it. But anyway, go ahead. A wife's resentment. Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, I just want to move on to this one, and I'll set it up for you, Bill. So we're talking about, keep in mind, guys, that we're talking about that when you change your how your body feels and how the brain thinks, that things start to change. So we're going to actually show you real proof here with this story of what physically changes during and after a session. So take it away, Bill.
Okay, so there is a device, it's called the BioWell. You can read a lot more about that. But this BioWell basically uses Kirlian photography and also fingertip acupuncture. They figured out that the Koreans knew that they would do acupuncture on the fingertips. So they had mapped the entire body through the meridians to every fingertip. So everything is expressed in your fingertips meridian-wise. And then the discovery was that through Dr. Kronikoff, the University of St. Petersburg, I believe, he married up Kirlian photography with that information. So we can map the entire energy field of the entire body. This particular woman here had a tremendous resentment for her husband. She wanted to leave him. She just came into me and just said, that she was leaving her husband and he sucks. I know that's a crazy story. A lot of people are like, what? You're resenting your husband? That doesn't seem possible. This is a crazy story. But here is the before in the left side. This is her energy field before doing Cogno movement related to her resentment. And then there was after. So you can see how thin and jaggedy that the energy around her was before and after. But here's the cool thing right here. This next slide shows a breakdown of every single energy field, energy system, organ in her body. So here, I'll have to explain this a little bit to you. Over on the left-hand side, this is the lines that are highlighted are the ones that are out of balance. Now, across the 31 numbers there are different organs, like your thyroid, your pituitary, all just different systems, right? Your jaw, all these different systems that you have. Now, over on the left-hand side, going up, they call it joules of energy. A joule of energy is an actual electrical charge. So it measures the electrical charge in your body in every organ, your liver, pancreas, you name it. Now, it also measures how out of balance it is. This is the before on the left-hand side and the after on the right-hand side. You can see that the energy is almost doubled. In some cases, even more. So not only did it double, but it also came into balance. So it actually, all of the organs that were out of balance became balanced. And then it also increased actual electrical charge. So early on, we said, hey, you know what? You're going to get more energy. Guess what? It actually is true, and it's measurable. You get more electrical charge. If you start talking to somebody who says, I feel so tired. I'm always so tired. I just don't have any energy for that. Well, if you keep talking to them, they're going to start telling you a story about the problem with the neighbor, the mom who didn't love them, the dad who ran away, the husband who did this, whatever. Guess what? Guess what? That is being expressed in every one of her or his organs in their body. They're depleted or constricted and the energy's not flowing. If they process the thing, voila, you literally can measure it. If you happen to be in San Diego, or you come to San Diego for a session or whatever, I do these measurements for people. So anyway, that's that. I just wanted to show that it is a shift in her understanding. She went from forgiveness, from resentment to love. And that is a shift in her awareness, a new understanding. The new understanding was, you know what? My husband, he's doing the best he can. And he actually does things that I appreciate. And I love him. So remember when I said back when you enter the fourth dimension, that love, unattached to an outcome, is seen in your own best interest. Well, guess what? It really is, all the way down to your physical body. It's in my interest because it'll be healthy. Voltage, the work of Dr. Jerry Tennant, you can look that up, is all related to voltage in the body. As your voltage increases in your body, you become more healthy. And where the voltage is decreased, you're going to have problems. So it's called electric health. If you're a member of Gaia, look up the video Electric Health by Dr. Jerry Tennant, and you'll see a wonderful interview there that is around the subject. Liz?
What's more fun about this story too is that, if I remember correctly, Bill, you were saying that she was kind of repulsed by her husband, and then after the session, she kind of find him strangely attractive.
Oh God! You know, it was like a month later. You know, she was laughing. I happened to see her just randomly, not in a session or anything, but she goes, my husband. You know, she was like, oh, when I came to see you, I found him absolutely repulsive. You couldn't be in the room with him, you know, or anything, you know. And the thought of him touching her, she said she was absolutely repulsed. And she says, you know what? It was like, she said, you know, after the session, she was like, it was like back in, and they have 3 kids, right? And she was like, it's like back in the dating days, you know. She said she craved him touching her, you know, that she really wanted his affection. So anyway, I just felt like that was wonderful because it was the saving of a marriage and also the saving of a very bad situation for the kids, right? These are kids, right? And their parents divorced. It's tragic for the kids. So again, it's one of the joys of kind of becoming a practitioner, is to help people with something that there's no way out. right? It's like, what do you mean not resent your husband? He did these things, how can you not feel how you feel? Well, you can do it because you evacuate it from the physical body, the subconscious.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody that that was done through the physical body. So once the body was not informing her mind that she was mad at him, reminding her constantly to be aware of all the whatever infractions he made in her life, once that was gone, her consciousness lifted. She had the awareness of like, well, maybe the situation isn't so bad. I mean, maybe he's actually kind of cute. Think about how many times your body has held a grudge against somebody for something that's maybe minor, but you just can't get over it. You can't stop feeling that way. So that's what the system allows for, is for those things to be gone. So the body stops informing the mind. Now, conversely, let's say it's a really bad situation, abuse or something like that. It won't take that away. What it'll do is make you much, much clearer on the steps you can take to get out, to make change, to make your life better. So let's move on, Bill. We're running out of time fast. So what is Cogno Quantum? This is one of our most favorite classes, and we wanted to include it because it really is a shift in thinking. It's a shift in consciousness. It's a consciousness shift that starts in your field. And remember that it is your body that informs your thought, and these together inform your field. So Cogno Quantum is a way that actually starts outside the body. It starts in the field, and this one is super fun. So what happens to you takes place in your energy field first. This is a big shift in thinking. What happens to you in your life actually takes place in your energy field first, and it's placed there by your emotions, your thoughts, and your feelings. Remember, you're a projector. You're projecting into your field, which is right around your body. HeartMath Institute says 6 to 8 feet for a healthy person, 30 feet for a movie star, a psychopath, or a politician, unfortunately. But our own energetic field is where these things take place first. So this is true of your good thoughts and feelings, and those that are not exactly so good, not the ones you want. So by activating the emotional state in your field makes you a super powerful creator. And what we discovered is that we can actually touch the small field. We can touch the greater field too, but the small one that the HeartMath Institute says is between 6 and 8 feet of the heart chakra in a healthy person. We can touch it, and we can actually feel where in that field these things that we want live. Now, we haven't done it the opposite way for the things that we don't want, but we're using it to actually touch the timeline or the edge or the place in our field that those things that we want, that we feel good about, live. And then what we do with them is we actually pull them into our bodies, back into our emotional thought, putting that pattern fully within the body so that it can then be projected back out into the field again. So it exists in your energy field, and you're literally just plucking it and pulling it back in. And this is one of those that it just kind of feels fantastic. Wouldn't you say, Bill, this class just feels fantastic?
Very much.
Yeah. So it's super, super fun, but it is the reversal. It's knowing for sure that what we are projecting is actually right there in our energetic field. Being able to connect with it and pull it into our body allows the timelines to change. And so it appears, and it really is on a quantum level, that our life changes. And so we'll show you some things that happen when your quantum field changes. So I want you to notice this. This is a painting that you can see here of a dahlia. So this is what is possible when it moves into your, when what's in your field moves into reality, moves actually into the physical. Or the opposite of that is what happens without the focus being on what's not wanted. So I'll share this story with you. This was a gal who came into my office, and when she came in, she had a lot of things on her mind. She is a wickedly smart person, very, very successful professional. But she came in with some things on her mind, some problems, and they were those of the type that kind of suck up all your time and energy. You know, things in her family, things in her extended family, things that were weighing her down, ideas about whether or not she'd continue with the life that she had or choose another, but very weighed down. And her physical body was in pain. So we worked a Cognomovement session. And when she left, a couple of things happened. First, she got a call from a family member who she'd had a lifelong problem with, who just simply said, I realize what I've done and I want to apologize. One of those things that would never happen in a million years, never. And it did instantly. The quantum field shifted instantly. So what was never possible 10 minutes before the session was immediately possible after the session. But then what happened in the next week? This is the thing. When we remove a pattern that is taking up so much energy out of our body, our energy moves in the moment, that's true, but it begins to expand exponentially over time. In about 8 days, she all of a sudden had all this time, which she never had before. She never had any time. Very, very busy woman, professional. All of a sudden, she found time to create this masterpiece, this painting. But what's interesting about this is she'd never painted in this medium. She was an artist before, but she'd never done flowers. The dahlia, if you're an artist, you know, is a very complex geometric problem for artists. It can become a pinwheel very quickly. It's a problem. She figured out the mathematical formula instantly. It just came to her. She had never used this particular medium. It's acrylic on a chalkboard, a slate board. And she said the whole thing just came together in a few days. She was able to create it as though it was nothing. And she didn't even realize that it was in the time frame after the session until we were talking, and I was looking at the pictures and saying how beautiful. And I said, wait a minute, when did this happen? And she realized it was 7 or 8 days after the session, and how much had to open in her mind for this to be possible. So masterpieces are possible when the quantum field shifts. So this brings me to something that's super fun to talk about, but there's a lot to it. So the Cogno quantum wobble. So would you share a little bit, Bill, what's the quantum wobble as it happens in Cogno quantum?
Well, so we know that the thing that's inside of you, your thought and feeling here, actually exists out in the field outside of you. Now that sounds crazy, but we've known that, right? That people have known this for millennia, but now you can actually measure it. So there's an EEG, which you put on the cap on your head for an EEG, and you can measure brain waves. Everybody knows about that. But now there's something called an MEG, which is a magnetoencephalograph. Now there's several of these around the world in universities, medical departments. And what it is it measures the brain activity, but from outside the head. You can tell actually out here. So we know that the thing is existing in and out of the head. So with this, I'm just explaining this because with this Cogno Quantum, what we have done is be able to access that in the field around you. And when you do, we call the, the wobble. When you do, it's like, whoa, you start to get this really unstable wobble that happens very naturally. And it is a feeling that's hard to describe, but it's very physical. And you just feel like you entered into another dimension, but it's a physical feeling. And you feel it in your body and you feel it in your head at the same time. That's about the best description I can give, Liz. You want to add to that?
Yeah, it's really true. And you know what's funny? As I was putting this presentation together, I realized that the quantum wobble is really pronounced during Cogno Quantum class, because you're working in your field and you're finding the place in the brain. We know that the right side of the brain is our communicator basically with the universe. If we can actually put and activate the place cell in the brain where the thing that you want to create lives, and connect it with your extended quantum field, you get this really weird sensation of I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it is a wobble. It's like dimensions start to move. You feel a little disoriented. And so what I realized is that we experience that in almost every Cogno movement session. The client or ourselves will feel a little dizzy or a little disoriented for a moment. It even goes as far as there being a little bit of a neurological overload where all of a sudden the system is like a little short circuit, because not only have our physical bodies changed, but we literally start to feel the things around us change. So what does that mean in our lives? Because we've talked a lot about that your consciousness change your lives. It often changes the trajectory of someone's life. What does that mean? It means that when they went into the session, they thought they were doing this or that with their life, or they felt stuck in their life. All of a sudden, they leave and their life takes another turn. I've experienced that myself. I think Bill has as well. Many of our practitioners have. All of a sudden, you think, oh my gosh, well, I could do this and that, just like Jones. All of a sudden, his life opened up to be able to rent out properties. Now, all of that was there before. He couldn't find it if his life depended on it. And then after a weird little session, it's there. So it's the same thing with timelines. I said we're touching the timeline. So what a timeline is where something actually is heading towards that thing happening. So, you have had timelines in your life when you were going to school, and you've had timelines in your life when you were dating and getting married. And then the timeline shifts and something else happens. You lose or gain a job, you have children, whatever. So we find that timelines change very, very quickly. Other people in our lives change, just like our master artist. All of a sudden her mom called and apologized out of nowhere, like very, very weird. It appears as though people are different. So on that note, very quickly, Bill, because we are running out of time, would you share the story of the woman and her son at the seminar?
The woman and her son.
She was at the seminar, braked for lunch.
Oh. Yeah, well, just real quick, I think I'd shared this also. I don't want to bore people with the same story, but there was a woman who, her son would not clean up his room. Now, granted, this is a very current story because it's very millennial type situation. The son is in his 30s and back home, and he's been there for a few years, and mom is just like, God, the room is a mess and he won't let me clean it up, and he won't clean it up either. And so there's this huge conflict, and she's just very resentful of him, and that, she's offering to clean it and he just won't, and, kind of one of those, get out of here, mom, type things. And anyway, she comes to me and we did a session on that. Anyway, amazing thing. Literally, we broke for lunch, and it was 15 minutes after the session, he calls her up and he said, "Hey, Ma, listen, I don't want you to be mad, Ma. I pulled all my stuff out of my room and I'm cleaning it up, but you're going to get home and everything's going to be everywhere. So I just don't want you to be mad at me. But I'm cleaning my room. Okay. All right." And click. And she's like, "Who's that? What's that?" She couldn't even believe it. Anyway, they ended up coming back, both of them. And I heard just last week is just like they're heard through another friend who knows them. They both of them are doing so well. They're like BFFs now. No problem. Anyway, it was pretty awesome. The repair of a family, which is always great. That feels good. Okay, go ahead, Liz. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess that just brings us right through to this purple note here, is that life changes when you get a shift in that quantum field, in the way that the consciousness is working, the way the body's working. You can literally change a whole life. I mean, that changes all of their happiness. All right, so we're in the home stretch, guys. What is Cogno Conscious? So Cogno Conscious is a class that we created that is specifically for raising your consciousness. So up until this point, we were, doing things like relieving pain and discomfort, stress, focus, sleep, emotional stuff. And then we realized what was actually happening is people's consciousness was raising, their awareness was raising, and things were available in their life. So I'll tell you a story in just a second. One of my roles in Cognomovement is experimenting, is studying what happens when we do this or that or the other thing, and then incorporating it back into what we train practitioners with and what we use in our sessions. So I began to experiment. But what this really is this is what Bill always says: you can't be greater than you feel. And being is about what our consciousness is. Being is what happens to us when we change our consciousness. Did you want to share something there, Bill?
No, I'm just saying your slide. You need to shift your slide.
Okay, I'll change my slide. So we're right here. This is the foundation. This is how Cogno Conscious works. And I'm going to hand it over to Bill to explain what this graph is that you're seeing.
Okay, so well, this is from Dr. David Hawkins' work, which I'm a big fan of. So these levels are kind of like the layers that I talked about earlier. These are the layers of different levels of consciousness or understandings that people have come to thus far in their life. And when if you look up this list and you think of your best friend, or people in your family are probably a really good thing to look at, you can actually see where they're at on this chart. As people ascend through the different levels of understanding, what happens is life changes. So at every single level here, you will, as I say, have a different piece of chocolate. These pieces of chocolate here and below the 200 mark are what I would call bitter pieces of chocolate. But as you raise up from shame over up, they become less bitter. And then as you raise up more, meaning change your mind, you become willing to look at a new perspective, willing to put in the effort to make the change. When you hit willingness, and what'll happen is that all these things become possible because you are in fact willing, and you're willing to even look at forgiving somebody. And when you do that, it opens a huge door for you. The reason that you're going to want to move up these levels is because the chocolate gets sweeter and sweeter as you go. And at the level of 400 is the level that genius level creativity emerges. And it sounds bizarre. And I thought it was bizarre. I thought it wasn't even attainable or real. I really didn't think it was real until it became true for me. Once that I had hit that level, I was getting 6 inventions a day, and they were just coming in like one after the next. It was, I couldn't even, I couldn't even write them all down. I started writing them in my phone and stuff, but this is not about me, or it is just available to everybody. It's not special. It's this ladder anybody can do. And our method, right, through Cognomovement or Cogno Conscious Seminar, is the express. So if you want to move quickly up, you can struggle and work your way slowly, struggling. But with Cogno Conscious, it's just, it is the nonstop express flight, coast to coast. So as Liz, is that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I just want to kind of take you through really, really quickly, because we are running out of time fast. In the Cogno Conscious Seminar, and this year we are doing a full 3-day Cogno Conscious. We've tried it in 2.5, but we never quite get to luxuriate in the higher levels of joy, peace, and enlightenment. And trust me, we experience enlightenment. We talked about Cogno Quantum feeling amazing. Cogno Conscious feels like that on 1,000 steroids. You literally get to feel that place of ineffability. When we say ineffability, is nobody can F with you in that place. Consciousness and just being. But what we do is we go through each level and we spend time working Cognomovement sessions on each level. We start at shame, move to guilt, move to apathy, move to grief, all the way through. Now, that's hard. It is hard. There's just no question. But not as hard as you would imagine. It's a little hard. But as you get up into, let's say, pride or anger, it's easier because you've cleared everything below it. And everything in pride equals anger, desire, fear, grief, apathy, right? So every one we tick off makes the next one that much easier. So we're going to spend 3 full days ticking off each of these. What we've seen is that people's consciousness level on the Hawkins scale jumps a minimum of 100 points, and some much bigger than that. So we don't have a lot of time to talk about that, but people leave absolutely changed. And actually, we're going to have one of our practitioners share that story with you in just 1 second. I want to share first, before I share this screen, about the very first Cogno Conscious client. And it was in my office, and we were trying just to see what would happen. Because we supposed that if we could clear each level, that we would get some real change. So I worked with a young woman. She came in and was willing to be my victim, I like to say. And we worked all the way through, and we didn't get to the end, but we got about 2/3 of the way up into above neutrality for sure, where the doorways open completely. So she came in, she couldn't gain weight. She was so painfully thin. She was struggling with her partner, bad situation. She was struggling in her job. She just really was kind of going nowhere with it. I mean, she was just struggling in her life. When she came in, she told me that her parents or grandparents were watching her baby, which she felt so guilty for, so terrible. And if she were late, it would have just driven her over the edge. She would have been in tears. So we ran a little late. I mean, this takes 3 days. We knocked some of it out in 3 or 4 hours. And she realized she was late. Her grandparents called and said, "You're late." Normally she would have scrambled out the door crying. She said, looked at her watch and said, I got time, and sat back in the chair. What happened after was what was huge. She left the partner, moved out of the house, moved out of a bad situation. Turned out it wasn't so much the partner, but his family. She went back to school. She stopped smoking pot, which was a huge thing in her life. She was able to start getting healthy. She went and saw a practitioner that changed her life in terms of nutrition, something absolutely not available to her before, because she wouldn't have thought she had the money. So that was the very first one. Then we had our first Cogno Conscious seminar, and things got nuts. So I'm going to ask Annette if you will open your mic and share your story, your Cogno Conscious story.
So thanks, Liz. And it's true, that picture that's on the screen right now, that's actually how the weekend felt, but in a good way. And then on the final day, I think the thing that changed it, that I can still feel it to this day, all I have to do is bring up that thought, is how I felt so connected with the whole. Like during the last portion of when you're up there on the Hawkins scale and we're doing the exercises, and how I felt so connected in a way that I had never felt before. So on my way back home, I'm sitting at the airport, and as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, well, the night before I had a dream about, I was sending out sonar signals, but I didn't understand what it meant. And so that day, after the end of the seminar, when I was at the airport, and I was sitting there, and I had gotten to the airport a little earlier, so I had some time, and I'm watching the people walk by, and I'm thinking to myself, I am love, you are love, we are love. And I started saying that to everybody that was walking by, and there was such a sense of peace, and I still don't know quite how to describe it, but I felt there was no separation between me and anyone else. So I continued it for the time I was in the airport. I continued it as I got on the plane and as everybody was boarding. And I still continue to do that today. I'll be driving and I'll be, okay, I am love, you are love, we are love. And it brings me to this place where I feel so connected in a way that I had never felt prior to this. So this is definitely life-changing in a way that I would have never expected it, so I am forever grateful, Bill and Liz. And yeah, that's, so I'm doing it again. I think that, because we are going to go up and down on the scale, right? We'll fall back down, but then we don't stay down as long, or I should say, I don't stay down as long anymore. Sometimes I dip and I notice it right away, and then I realize that I don't have to stay there anymore. There's other possibilities, there's other choices. So thank you for letting me share my story.
So thank you for sharing that, Annette. Annette was such a trooper in that first session. And I remember getting to work with her during that. And it was just fascinating to watch the changes. But I wasn't there as an attendee. I was there as leading the session with Bill and a practitioner. So what happened to me and to Leah, who was actually there as technical support, was incredible. So that's why I say things got nuts. So we left thinking that was an amazing seminar, watching each of these people transform in front of us and experience the ecstasy of enlightenment and bliss. And it was fantastic. I'm sure Bill can share that too, that how fantastic it was just to watch the changes, the rich changes. But on our way home, Lee and I live in Oregon and Bill lives in San Diego. And we were in San Diego for the seminar. By the way, this November, you can attend in San Diego, even though there's a plague. We can only have a limited number of people, but if you get a chance to attend in San Diego, it's amazing. But we decided to drive back up to LA where we were catching our plane, but along the coast. And we had quite a few hours, And as we traveled, we probably planned out the next 50 years of our lives. Everything seemed available and possible. And I would imagine that the whole reworking of the website, we probably talked about it that day, we don't remember. It was huge. But what was bigger than that is as we went home, we experienced some weird lapses in time, very weird lapses in time. Oh, actually, we drove home. We didn't fly. We experienced things moving in space and time. Cars that were, looked a mile away would instantly be close. It was very, very strange the way that all of a sudden the physical world seemed very, very different. And that was from being a practitioner, not even being an attendee. So what happens during and after a Cogno Conscious seminar, no one can say. But what we do know is that it's really, really big. Do you want to share anything about that before we move on, Bill?
Oh, I just, I've witnessed personal shifts for people through that. One of them I know really well. Basically, things that shouldn't have been possible were, there was a family business and the mother and daughter had a real issue inside the business, and then it went away and it went away instantly. It was like, Sunday, the seminar ends Monday. Went back to work and everybody was like completely different, and the issue is completely gone. So it's a really big thing. Like not possible type stuff.
Yeah, that's the truth, and that's what we say, why we talk about shift in consciousness, shift in energetic field. What's impossible before, immediately before, is totally possible after, plus. All right, we are seriously short on time. We promise we will give everybody a chance to ask some questions. This last screen is an interesting one, and it just came up about a week ago. In fact, if your practitioners are watching, you may not have even heard about this question. So one of our wonderful practitioners messaged me because she had the same question and her client had brought it up. It was a question about karma, and here's what she posed. Is it possible that we are cheating karma, that we're doing something wrong by deleting these massive problems in our life and then feeling better instantly? And so what that means is, like, shouldn't we have to live through these big problems and somehow sort them out some other way instead of taking a shortcut around them? So it's an interesting thing. And I think the supposition is that, there's somebody out there putting these challenges in front of us, and we have to struggle our way through them to prove our worth or our value or something like that. And so it's very interesting because we got to looking at that and thinking, it never occurred to me, but, we're thinking about this in the absolute opposite way. We're thinking about it, and then we're projecting with our own thoughts and feelings, our own patterns. And some of them are so weird where they come from, meaningless, actually. We're projecting it into our own field. And when we remove it, we allow this 360-degree view of what else is possible and what more we can create for other people. So we actually create, if you're going to think about it in terms of creating good things, we actually create something much more and much better once we're able to remove that chronic pattern of trouble. So I'll share with you a little download I had in thinking about this question and working the Cogno Movement ball. And I want to assure you, those of us who are practitioners, and Bill and I, we use our Cogno Movement balls. I use mine daily, literally daily. I refuse to allow myself to suffer, unless I want to suffer for a little while, around anything. I cleared out. So here was what a download that came after that. The universe is still being created. So we've been told there's nothing new under the sun, but that's not true. The universe is constantly being created. Creation is, of course, never finished. Universal Source just created a lot more hands so that creation could be multiplied exponentially. You ever heard the saying that we're just the effect of universe experiencing itself? It can be multiplied exponentially, unendingly, and with uncountable perspectives. What could be more joyful? We literally create a more joyful, ecstatic universe when we release and relieve these patterns of struggle and strife and pain and discomfort. We release them not only for ourselves, but for generations to come. This is a whole nother subject that we do not have to go into now, but we found that we're deleting it from our own genetic codes and things can be changed massively. Before we end, I want to give Bill a chance to expand on this.
On karma?
Yeah.
So karma is really ultimately about changing our minds. That's its only purpose, is to help us to change our mind about a thing. If you are upset about people gossiping about you, then all you have to do is to stop gossiping about others. If you have a problem with people stealing your junk, have I ever, stole somebody's stuff, and all you have to do is just stop doing it. And if you look, there's some area in your life that you've been kind of doing those things. So simply it comes down to changing your mind about doing that act because you understand fully both sides of the coin. With Cognomovement, you're really clearing the pattern. As you clear out, you'll find a natural shift in your interest in that, in anything around it. And it will seem very, very natural to you. So you can naturally end your karma through this. If that makes sense, it's basically shifting your mind, changing your understanding.
So I think that's everything, Bill, is changing the understanding through changing the pattern in your body. And that really is what we wanted to share with you guys today. That's our slant on consciousness and our experience with what happens. So some of the things, if you want to learn more and if you want to experience some of these shifts yourself, the things that are happening in November are the Superhuman Immunity Gym. That's a 7-day-a-week class. It's an amazing bargain. It's only $99 for the week. It's 7 days a week with Bill, where he actually teaches you how to boost your immunity through breath exercise. It's not a Cognomovement class, but he does breathing exercises, some physical exercises with it to really boost that electrical charge in the system. And he does a really, really beautiful meditation at the end. So it's a brand new meditation every day. Cogno Quantum is happening. It's our 2-hour class where you actually get to experience your quantum field and make some changes in it, pull in what's desired into your life. Feels incredible. It's just a 2-hour class and it happens on a Tuesday night in November. I don't have the dates, but if you go to the Cognomovement upcoming events, you'll find that. There's no prerequisite for that. You don't have to know Cognomovement to have that class, but you kind of do need a ball to take that class. So the other thing is Cogno Conscious is happening. It's a full 3-day event. This class is a little spendy, I have to tell you guys. However, for the next 24 hours, we are offering a $200 discount off of that. And I will share, as soon as I stop sharing my screen, I will give you the coupon code. But to get the discount, you have to use the coupon code. So it's Cognomovement 200, all lowercase, is the coupon code. So if you sign up for the class, and didn't use a coupon code, there's nothing we can do about that. Our system doesn't allow us to change it. So if you want that discount in the next 24 hours, you do have to use the coupon code. Also, practitioner certification level 1 is coming up at the end of the month. It's a 7-day, quite intensive class. It's 4 days in a row and then 3 follow-ups. For Cogno Conscious and for Practitioner 1, you do need to have basic training under your belt. We don't want to spend time teaching the basic class. During that, we really want to take you from knowing how to use it at the basic level and moving directly into either learning how to work with clients, or in Cogno Conscious, really working that Hawkins scale all the way to the top. Basic training. We've talked about this a lot. It is a prerequisite for a lot of things we do. If you have not experienced it yet, this is the place to start. It's ground zero, the place to begin. It's going to give you exactly the steps for how to use your Cognomovement balls. You're going to receive 2 balls, a big beach ball and a small soccer ball style. They work the same, just different weights and sizes. You're going to get all the steps. You're actually going to get 3 full sessions that you can use again and again. So you can make as much change as you can handle. So, and then you're going to get a troubleshooting course. This is actually maybe the most important part, is there are little things that people do or don't do that can make their benefits from doing a session work or not work. So the troubleshooting course is invaluable as a part of that package. So that is the #1 place to start if you're brand new to Cognomovement. I highly encourage you to take that class and get on your Cognomovement journey. And we just want to say thank you so much for being here with us, for being a part of Cognomovement. And thanks for watching our presentation. And we're now going to open up the floor to questions and comments. Let me stop sharing. While you guys are talking to Bill, I'm going to go ahead and put that coupon into the chat room. Oh, it looks like Leah already did it. And just go ahead and open up your mic if you would like to share or make a comment. We have any of our practitioners who would like to share something from a class? Let's start there. Come on, you guys, don't be shy. No one's gonna.
I'm not shy. I'm not shy.
Yay.
Hi, I'm new. I just finished a 5-day webinar on Portal to Ascension, and there were all these teachers, and we were so overwhelmed. We were looking for change. We both need emotional deep healing and stuff. And then we saw Bill on Gaia TV with Regina Meredith, and we were just so turned on. And we're just so excited. We're going to get the basic training right after this. We've been talking about it for 2 days. We tried to do what Bill said and go on Amazon. There was a ball, but they don't have it. So we're just so excited. And I'm a doctor and a minister, and I really need. We really need to shift things. I've been working on conscious stuff for 51 years, balls to the wall, but there's still all this stuff that needs. I've been doing shadow work and deep stuff. But I'm telling you, this ball watching Bill do this, we're just so excited. And Wally, here's Wally. He's so excited because he says, "Oh my!" Because Bill said we don't have to talk about it. Wally, I said, Wally, you got to talk, because he doesn't want to talk about it. Now I'm a talker, but I'm a teacher and talker, but we're just so excited. And we're signing up. We'll do as much as fast as we can. We can't wait. Can't wait.
We love it. Where are you guys from?
Well, God made us, but we've been everywhere. We're RVers for 16 years, and we've been boaters for 20 years before that. But we are on the river, the Colorado River in Arizona, where right across the river is Nevada, and 20 minutes away is California. So we're in Arizona, and I just finished a year of playing piano and music and they had me go live and do Facebook shows for a Unity spiritual group. And I just, everything in my life is shifting. Oh, I kind of had a spiritual curse happen, and I was crippled in both arms and my neck for 28 years. And I healed that about 5-6 years ago. Wally had a massive heart attack, and they said, Susie, just stand by him. Oh, yeah, let him see. They said, just stand by him, because when and I said, they called me in to say goodbye the second night. And I went in crying. He was crying. And then they said, no, Susie, just stand there, because all of his vitals would get well. So I've got healing stuff happening. I've done so much research. I finished my doctorate in metaphysical science a decade ago. I've been a minister for New Thought. Wally's been just hanging on, saying, we've just been hurt and hit and betrayed from being on the front lines for so long. So we really are excited. We need healing in just about every area. Not because we're deadbeats, but because we're on the front row and we just keep getting hit, you know?
Yeah, you're right on the tip of the spear, right?
I'm telling you,
wonderful. Thank you for
what you did with Regina, I'm telling you, we love her so much. But we're just dedicated. It just made so much sense to us. I mean, we've done tapping and different. So anyway, we're here.
All right. Thank you. It's so nice to meet both of you.
Yeah. Well, you say hi.
You know, I just want to point out that you guys are exactly who comes to Cognomovement. It's really true. These are high-level people who've literally done everything, who have done so much work on themselves already, and you're just ready to be done with basically the karmic cycle. Like, whatever those last things are, you're ready to be done with them. And the truth is, you know, being on the front line of serving and helping people, yeah, there's a lot that comes with that, and we take care of ourselves last sometimes. So this is perfect for you guys and anybody out there who's hearing my voice that really has run the gamut of the kinds of modalities and things that they have tried and practiced and learned. Cognomovement pushes it right over the edge, and the things that you already know play right into it and serve you that much greater. What we've also found is the things that you learn in other seminars and other books and all that, all of a sudden become very, very real and expand beyond anything you could have ever imagined, because you have all that knowledge. Some of it just doesn't quite emerge. You don't exactly aren't able to use it in your lives necessarily. And then you remove these programs and you are. So I just want to say welcome, guys, because this is home for you.
Yes, it is. And one more thing too, not only getting rid of the negative, but when we saw that stuff where I think Regina had one, and then we watched several things where, and some guy was like just trying to do more positive stuff. And I don't know what all the classes, what you call them, but you know, working to be more conscious and I don't know, we're just thank you. We're here.
Thank you.
Okay, so Bill, we really only have about 5 more minutes and we need to go. So is there anybody else who wants to share or ask a quick question? I would say, please do it now. I just want to say that oh, go ahead. Is it Leah?
It's me.
Go, Leah. Go, Leah.
So one of our viewers is asking, Bill, could you explain how this is an even more powerful modality than tapping? I was following a coach who teaches manifestation through the use of tapping, and she's now making $200K a month from her program. I haven't signed up for it, and I saw Bill on Gaia and got inspired to try this out.
Oh, okay. All right. So what with Cognomovement, you are enlisting your entire system in this. So we there's so much to it, but you're enlisting your neurological system, So your spine is attached to your brain and your brain to your eyeballs. And so what we're doing with this is we are having a person to really focus on the thing, whatever that might be, manifesting, you name it, or an issue or craving. And we force the body to start to process, because it works the eyes into new positions where you're not used to having them related to the issue. So if I am, for example, resentful of my father, maybe I look down here, when I tell the story, but the parts of my brain that are inactive related to it are, let's say, up here. So this is just one aspect. What tapping does is it utilizes some of the meridians to start to get the issue gone. But what you'll find in tapping is you won't really have a sensation in the body. So with Cognomovement, I think you've heard, about the choking or the heart, or, the thing moving up or down, that sort of thing. Typically, you don't feel that with the tapping. I learned tapping many years ago, and we actually incorporate a little bit of it in the system. But you don't really get the issue where you can actually feel it in the body leave. And so it's a very, very different experience. We also do use the meridians and that sort of thing in Cognomovement as well, and we use them through the ears. So it's another thing that you'll learn in the basic training. Go ahead.
Let me jump in here for just a second, and I'll answer on another level. So Cognomovement, immediately the ball, you can see it here behind me, it activates the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. We use cross-body movement to start forcing information back across the left and right side of the brain. So immediately we're activating audio, visual, and kinesthetic, hearing, sight, and hands. The three main ways that the body learns are immediately activated. So if you did nothing else but the most basic movement, the body is now ready to learn. When we're asking the body to delete patterns or install new ones, which we can do with Cognomovement, the body has to learn a new way of being, a new way of processing information, moving its chemicals, moving its electricity. So immediately with the base steps of Cognomovement, we're doing that. The body's ready to learn, ready to accept new information, and deletes the old. We are working with the place cells of the brain through the eyes to basically you can do even a form of a regression with some of the work. We're using eye accessing cues, which force the body to move through emotional levels all the way into idea and inspiration. So the program at its core level leaves a person up into a new idea and into what is possible. So we're going far beyond just deleting a program. We're actually activating the entire nervous system to create change. That's why we can say that these patterns, when they're deleted, are quite permanent. You better be sure you want rid of them, because we literally confuse the neurology so much that it just have to delete the pattern and there's no way for it to return. So tapping is wonderful, like Bill said, and we do incorporate a little bit, but Cognomovement is a whole set of things that already work on their own. Each piece of Cognomovement will work to create a change. When they are combined, it happens very, very quickly and very, very completely. So I hope that answers your question. We do need to close for the night. We're 15 minutes over. If you have more questions for us, for Bill or I, please reach out to us on cognomovement.com. You'll see a chat. During business hours, you'll get somebody to respond immediately. And then You usually get Leah, but Bill and I get those questions and we'll answer them for you. If it's technical stuff about the website, Lee can answer everything for you. If it's about classes, she can answer everything for you. More than that, she'll send them over and we'll give you a good answer. For right now, if you're wanting to get started, please consider basic training. It is the place to start, and you will start getting changes. If you want to come to Cogno Conscious, you do need to start with basic training if you haven't done so. If you have done your basic training, please join us, and you can use the coupon Cognomovement 200 and get $200 off of that. Again, you can attend in San Diego Live or online as well. Practitioner training is coming up. You can attend online or in person, and it ends at the end of the month. You can reach out to us for a 15-minute phone call about practitioner training if you want to ask questions about that. So for the next 24 hours, if you want that discount, please use the code. After that, our system will delete it. So I think that's everything we can do for tonight, Bill. You ready to say goodnight?
Just want to mention one other thing. We have some of our practitioners here tonight. I just want to call them out. Now, these practitioners, you can contact them. They'll do a remote session for you. So if you're not sure about Cognomovement or something, and you want to have a session with a practitioner, Annette is available. She's wonderful. She's out of New Jersey. You can find her on our website. Marina is available. She's out of Massachusetts. And is there anybody else here? So we have, those two are available. Obviously Liz is also available, myself, but those are all on the website under Find a Practitioner.
So we had one last question. The discount is just for Cogno Conscious. It's just for that one class is what the discount is for. All right. Yes, Christine, the practitioner list is go onto the website. It's on the front page. You'll see a banner that says become a practitioner. Okay, guys, we're going to sign off. Good night, and thank you for being here.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night.